This is the Voice of Early Childhood podcast. This episode is sponsored by Funding Loop. Funding Loop automates the process for nurseries of collecting funding forms from parents and typing that information into council portals. To find out more about Funding Loop, visit their website. You'll find the link in this episode description. Hey everyone, a quick message from me, the founder of The Voice of Early Childhood. I wanted to thank you all for listening and tuning into the podcast. We're always ensuring we provide valuable content for our listeners and viewers as we share diverse voices from across the early childhood community. And we're always encouraging you all to share your voice too. So if you have a specific topic in mind or a guest you'd like to hear from, let us know. Just fill in the contact us form via the link in this episode description. And if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are listening on. This helps us to keep sharing voices and thought-provoking content. Thank you all for being part of the Voice of Early Childhood community. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Voice of Early Childhood podcast. Today, we are joined by Poppy LeMar, who is a reception teacher and a technology coordinator in her school. She's also known as the teacher with pink hair on Instagram and TikTok, where she has created a community for early years educators and parents, where she shares her work. So thank you so much, Poppy, for joining the podcast today.
Thank you for inviting me on.
It's really great to have you. And today we are speaking about school readiness and really homing in on children sitting still, with this narrative mainly coming from the UK government, as heard recently by Bridget Phillipson, the UK Secretary of State for Education. So talking about school readiness and the need for 4-year-olds to sit still. So in one of her recent public speeches, Bridget Phillipson states that, this is a quote, "Far too many children are arriving for their first day in school simply not ready to learn. A quarter not fully toilet trained, a third can't follow instructions, half can't sit still." So in your Instagram reel, you are agreeing with the majority of what she's saying, which we will unpick later on. But the last part you didn't seem to be happy with. So that's kind of why I invited you on the podcast episode, actually, to really unpick this, because your response is really interesting. So that last part, your response was that 4-year-olds should not have to sit still. Is that right?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people that do not work in a primary school have little to absolutely no understanding of what's expected for a child in their first couple of years of schooling. And that's no one's fault. I have no idea how to do an accountant's job because that's not my job and it's not my interest. So, but I own money. So by default, you could say parents and people that work with children should know. But that's not the case because we all have lives and we're all busy and we're doing our own thing. The concept that, or the way she was putting her speech out, I'm really, really hoping for her, not necessarily for her sake, but just for her, like, proof that she's still an intelligent woman. That she did not mean they have to sit still for extended periods of time. I'm hoping she's saying that they can't get through a couple of minutes on the carpet, sitting and focusing on something. But I feel that she was let down by an advisor somewhere that approved her speech.
Right, yeah.
Expecting a 4-year-old to sit down still and quiet, it is unrealistic for more than a couple of seconds.
And people that work with children will really be able to relate to this now. They'll be able to say, yep, I completely get it. You can't make a 4-year-old. And, some of them coming into reception are barely 4 years old. They've only just turned 4. So basically 3-year-olds. You can't make them sit still, their bodies still, like lip sipped, or however we used to say it, like arms crossed, lip sipped, that kind of thing. Really old. I mean, that's what I remember, from my childhood. Is that still the case in schools, do you think? Or have you seen this with some reception teachers?
So there is an expectation. So, for example, within the first week of teaching, and when I say the first week, I go with 5 whole days, because depending on how your school starts, you could have 2 days in the first week. You could be working on half days. There's lots of different ways that reception cohorts are kind of introduced to school.
Yeah.
I would say in the first 5 full days, I explain to the children there is only one time I will ever ask them to be quiet and sat. I'm not asking them to sit still. I'm asking them to sit safely. I'm asking them to sit together. I'm asking them to be quiet for possibly up to 90 seconds because I need to do a register and it's for their safety. And I'm not, they will chat. They will whisper to each other. And we work with that as we go through. And obviously, as they get older, through that year and through their schooling life, they will understand when I say it's for their safety, that it literally is. So I know who I've got, that if we have a fire drill or an actual fire emergency or an emergency where we need to either keep the children inside or outside the building, that I know exactly who I've got. And that's the only time I ever ask them to be in as close as possible to silence and still. And most children, even the ones that are literally basically a 3-year-old still, so you basically class them as a toddler, can do that because you say to them, right, you make it into a game, you explain it to them, because they might be just 4, some of them, but they understand. If you say, look, this is the only time I'm going to do it, and it's to keep you safe, it's so I know which of your friends are here, so I can make sure we can all go to the playground together, and you explain it to them on their level that they understand, they will sit there and they'll fidget, and that's fine. But they are sat together in a space that you've defined. They will sit reasonably quietly. They're probably having a giggle and a whisper, like I said, but it's quiet enough and still enough that you can do the safety requirements you need to do.
Yeah.
And I think growing up, I remember teachers saying, oh, it's a legal document. I don't care if it's a legal document. That's not to do with it. It's the safety of it. Every parent will want their child's teacher to know if they're in the room. And I could probably do the register without asking the children and sitting them down because I see them on the door. But occasionally I might go and check a child that needs a shoelace being tied, or there's a bit of lively conversation that might need to be checked that it's all happy and not an argument. And a child may walk through the door that I've not noticed straight away. And it's that double checking. Or maybe my teaching assistant's seen the child and I've not, because she's been on the door. So whilst they won't have been completely not seen by an adult, we need to make sure, and it's my primary role to keep them safe, that I've got them in front of me and I can take that moment. And that is 90 seconds twice a day. And realistically, once you've got their names in the bag, it doesn't even take that long. But that's the only time they should be quiet. And it should be still-ish, quiet-ish.
Yeah.
They get better at it. They get to know that I'll just sit here quietly for a minute. This is the register. But I don't feel that's what I don't feel Bridget Phillipson was referring to that. I feel she was referring to more formal education. Key stage 1 up, key stage 2 up. So that would be kind of ages 5 up or ages 7 up. I don't teach that far up, so I don't always remember what age they sit.
Yeah, the older children, basically, beyond early years. Yeah. Well, I really love that you reframed it, actually, from sitting still to sitting safely, because that is exactly how we need to be, I think, seeing it. Why do children need to sit still? Is it for our own sake? Is it for us as adults to think, oh, this is just too busy, too loud, too noisy, everyone just calm down, be quiet, I've got a headache, is that the reason why we want children to be quiet and sit still, just for our own sake? Or is it for their safety? Because really it should be only for the safety of themselves and anyone else around them, and yourself as well, of course. That psychological safety, you don't want them screaming in the classroom, and that's not a pleasant environment necessarily, environment conducive to learning either. So it's thinking about those kinds of things rather than are we just getting to sit still because of that we're an authority figure and there's that power imbalance, and it's always been this way as well.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, any good reception teacher or any good teacher of the early years and young children, you might ask them to sit still. The version of still is different, number one, for every individual teacher. Different teachers' expectations and tolerances will be different. For example, very, very simply, I had a little boy last year and he was amazing. He was so switched on. He knew if you asked him what I was reading in the story to the class, which is another example of a moment not asking them to sit rigidly still. I'm not asking them to sit in complete silence. They do suss that they want to listen to my storybook, so they choose to sit quietly. They might still giggle. They'll laugh. I'll ask them questions. I'll ask them to show me, I don't know, a Gruffalo face. So we are getting movement in. We are asking them to respond and use their voices. They're choosing to listen, though, which is lovely, because if you sat and read a bedtime story, you'd expect a child to listen. It's not that they're sitting in silence because I've demanded it. I might say something, you need to calm down. But anyway, so this little boy, he could answer every question. He didn't look like he was paying any attention because he just couldn't sit still. So as a teacher, I sit him at the back of the carpet. So that stops him from distracting those that are sitting stiller or sitting with a smaller fidget. I never expect them to sit like a statue. It's just not, I can't as an adult, and I never have been able to. So why would I expect it of a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old? But to a lot of members of staff, he looked like he wasn't paying attention. And it was on a kind of, we've got lists in our classroom that say kind of like a quick rundown of anything that's worth knowing if you were to take my class for whatever reason. I was off ill, or maybe I was on a course.
That's a good idea. And
we have a quick rundown, and it was on his that he sits at the back, always in the back row. He may not look like he's listening, but he is. Like, I'm not saying test him, but I know if I was that teacher and I didn't believe the note on the thing, I'd read the story and then go, so what was, what colour were the prickles on the Gruffalo's back? He'd answer because he was focusing, but he wasn't focusing in the traditional sense that a lot of us are used to. So I think it's a primary example of the fact that sitting still as a phrase is very outdated and kind of needs to disappear to an extent, especially for those kind of like key stage ones, so age 6 or 5, 6, so 7 and under, definitely. And even those that are 7 up, you can wiggle your foot under the chair. You go out for coffee, you don't keep your feet still under your seat.
Exactly.
You're tapping things, you're moving your cup, you're all these things that are acceptable as an adult, but giving you that slight release of movement should also be acceptable for a child within reason.
Yeah, definitely. And as soon as you relate it to adults, that's when I think it clicks for many people. And it's like, oh yeah, I can't sit still for ages. I'm always tapping my foot. Maybe some people fidget with, I've got a ring. I'm always kind of like twisting it over. And we do have kind of like, I guess we call them still fidget toys or sensory toys for adults in terms of little things on our like key rings and things like that, and for children as well. Do you have any of those kind of things in the classroom? Do you give children like sensory toys to engage in whilst they're on the carpet?
I do sometimes. We do not give, in my school, we don't give fidget toys unless it's an agreed action with our special educational coordinator. So a lot of people would know them as a SENDCO.
Yeah.
Because the same as an adult, a child can find something that's with them to fidget with. Whereas quite often a child needs to be taught to use a fidget toy to not ping across the room by accident. At which point, me as a teacher, I'm going to be like, guys, why? Like, just keep it to yourself. Because number one, it could hit a child in the head or an eye or whatever. It could go into the window. And then, by the 5th, 6th, 7th time that day it happens, you're still a human being and you want to be like, I'm going to have that now because it's disrupting things, or it's getting dangerous, or it's distracting for maybe the group work you're doing in a small group, or it's causing the atmosphere of the classroom to change or alter because it is funny. Like it is, therefore it's funny. But also I think when they go outside to their continuous provision, they haven't got that fidget toy necessarily. Or what if it gets lost? They don't have that at home. So if they can find that they can fiddle with their hair, or maybe a bit of clothing that they've got, they're going to be wearing clothes most of the time, I hope. If they can find that fidget the same as an adult does, that is on them, I personally think it's far more productive long term. I know it's a very different take. I fiddle with my hair, I fiddle with my rings, and definitely I've not got a necklace on, but I fiddle with my necklaces constantly. Whilst the children might not have rings or necklaces on, they will have something on them or with like present with them that they could fiddle with. And I think that's far more personal for them and far more accessible outside of the school environment.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not against fidget toys at all. I think they do need to be taught to be used correctly, especially as children get older, because they can't. Why has Fred got a fidget toy, but like Teresa's not? Like, why can't I have one? Well, you can sit and regulate yourself. Yeah, but it's not fair. I want a ball too. All of a sudden, you're spending £3 a head on fidget toys, and that's 90 quid before you've even made sure they've got glue sticks till the end of the year. So if they can find something within themselves, number one, it's better resourcing as a school. Number two, it's probably more sustainable long term. So there's different takes on it. And also some parents wouldn't buy a conventional fidget toy that the child's been taught to use productively. So therefore, I'm not saying it's a waste of time, but maybe there's better ways of looking at it or supporting it. So
yeah, I think that's a really critical way of seeing it, and that's really important. You've been reflective. You're not just being like, "Oh no, we don't do this in our school," and that because this is what we're told. And I was going to actually go back to something that you mentioned earlier around, you were talking about a little boy who fidgets a little bit more, and is not as still and calm and quiet as maybe the other children. So in order to not distract the other children, you place him at the back. Now, that is to make sure that he's happy and everyone else is happy. But just to clarify, some people might see that as, oh, that's a bit of a punishment. And because there's that thing of maybe not so much to the back, but placing a child. I remember, again, when I was in reception year 1, year 2 myself, maybe this is a core memory because this is something that's not very pleasant. The teacher would place a child who's fidgeting a lot and being a bit more disruptive next to them. So then that's almost like a punishment, if you see what I mean.
I get that. I think it's very much down to the way the teacher in that room frames it. I never framed it as a negative thing. It also meant, because he was a very switched on child from the get-go, you get a range of children into your classroom in September as a reception teacher. Some of them you can say to them, could you stand up and get me a pencil? Because my board has 30 children between me and any of my resources. And sometimes you sorted 12 things out and realise you've left the pencil that you actually need to write with in front of the children at the back of the room, which means me and my big size 6 feet have to then navigate 30 pairs of teeny tiny fingers. It's not always, it's a bit, you don't want to break a finger at any point, but within the first few days, it's definitely a no. But he was the sort of child that I could say, oh, could you go and get me a pencil from that pot? All right. And he was able to do it because he had the experience in his life to be able to follow the instruction, and he knew what a pencil was. He knew that I wanted it to come back to me by what I'd asked him. So I think it's reframing. He saw he was at the back, but he also was able to help me. Or it's just, I don't have negative spaces in my room. Like,
I love that.
It's a case of, I had children as well that were very anxious and very nervous and didn't want to be anywhere near the front. I think a lot of adults, and I don't know if this is an adult preconception because of the rest of our experiences in life and therefore connotations and inferences that we make as adults, or if it is something that has existed in the school system. And I have thought about this really hard and I can't decide. The front is good, the back is bad, but why?
Yeah.
Is that because a teacher at some point has made that happen, like you have memories, or is that adult inference that you want to be at the front because that's a positive thing to be? It means you're ready, you're going to speak up for yourself. I have children that, oh my word, if I sat them at the front, they'd probably be in tears the whole time because they just didn't want to be seen by everyone. They didn't want to be at the front with me being able to see them so easily. So them sat at the back was perfect. They loved it. If they, if I said everyone come to the carpet and they ended up with the one space at the front and middle, you'd see they just wanted to, melt into tears. If I go, oh, could you swap with her? She needs, like, so-and-so wants to sit at the back. Result, happiest thing in the world. So I think as a teacher, my role is to make sure that I've not created those connotations.
Yeah.
You're stood in the line for lunch. Oh, you're messing around, go to the back. Why? I need someone at the back to hold the door open and make sure every child got through. Like, that's a great space to be. I need someone that I can trust to hold the door
Someone
open.
responsible.
Yeah, someone's got the physical muscle at the age of 4 to hold a fire door open after I've put it in the right place. Like, it's not a bad place. So it could be a teacher that set that up as a feeling or a thought in the classroom. But if you don't do that, it's not a bad place to be. Back's a great place. You're the first one off the carpet closest to the toys. It's great. You don't have to try and step over someone. Someone's not sat almost in your space by, and you're not squared in. You can probably lean back a bit. So I think it's a teacher's role to make sure that those connotations aren't there. I think as well, we need to work out as an adult, is that because the teachers put that into our brain at an earlier point? Is it things we assume because of, as an adult, we have a lot more experience in life and therefore we know the connotations of being at the front or the back? I think it's just not passing those on if we do have them. It's not, definitely. It's no different to the thoughts around maths, in the fact that a lot of people struggle with maths because maths changes. The way we teach maths now is different to 5 years ago, different to 10 years ago, different to 15. I wasn't good at maths. You don't say that in front of a child because it straight away puts a negative on it. Yeah. The same thing with front and back. It's the same thing with a lot of school-based or childhood-based activities and scenarios. It's not putting a negative narrative that we have onto them.
Yeah, from within ourselves. It's all about being critical, reflective and self-aware, isn't it? And making sure that anything that you talk about, anything that you do, you're actually thinking, oh, hang on a minute, why have I done that? Where's this coming from? Is this necessary? Could this be a negative? Could this be seen as a negative by a child?
Yeah. And it's all on your setup, on your language, on the way you portray it. On the way, 90% of me making the children feel happy and safe in my room is marketing. For example, something could go wrong with lunches, and this is a perfect example. Something could go wrong with school lunches. Whatever was on the menu had to be flipped, and I knew the kids weren't fans of fish cakes. Nor did they actually get, and it was in the first couple of weeks. I don't know what happened. Maybe a freezer broken, but they were safe to eat it. Might not have been their number one choice. Well, I told them they were fish burgers, and that they're my favourite. It's amazing how all their plates were empty. Like, it's framing, it's reframing, it's the story, it's the performance. And as a reception teacher, and I've not always been a reception teacher. I've taught year 1, year 2, year 3. I taught secondary school at one point. And as a reception teacher, if my class at the end of the year forget the end of the year. If my class do not leave the first day of school wanting to come back and see me, I've failed. It's not about teaching them or getting the results or the data. I'm their first experience of formal learning where they have to show up every day for an extended period of time. If they don't love it, I've failed. Because if I don't get them to love it the first year, we've got no hope going up. Yeah. So the marketing, the framing, the anti-negativeness is so important. And I'm a human. I'll feel rough one day. I'll have a cold. I might go, I've not said that right. And you hope that you can gloss over it, leave it an hour, and maybe come back to it and deliberately overhype something because you're like, I've really made a mistake there. But 90% of the time, you notice it, you reframe it, you put an emphasis on going over it a few times that week to make sure that they've forgotten the badly worded or the grumpy moment. Because we're human beings. So I don't think sitting at the back of the carpet's a bad thing. I'd love to sit at the back of the carpet. I wouldn't have to be so focused on the people behind me, like personal space. I could not really lay down, but you could definitely relax a bit more.
And I was going to say on that topic as well, do you allow children to sit however they want on the carpet?
Within reason. And I say within reason because if I've got a child who's choosing to sit at the front, or I've asked to sit at the front due to sight issues or maybe hearing issues or speech issues, and I ask them to sit a bit closer today, I can't have them sat on their knees because the kids behind them won't be able to see the book, won't be able to see what I'm showing them. So we suggest they sit with their legs crossed because that is expected further up the school. And we do ask them If they're not sat with their legs crossed, I'm not going to interrupt what I'm showing them, modelling, discussing, reading, to correct them unless it's actually disturbing those around them.
Yeah.
But if they can't see, the other children can't see, or the other children can't settle due to the way they're sat, or if they've curled their feet round to the side and they're like their foot's on someone and that's bothering that person, I'll ask them just to make sure you're not touching them. But if it's not bothering those around them, I'd wait until we get to the end, and as long as we're all happy and settled and no one's got a problem with what has happened, I'm not going to correct them majorly. But we do suggest and ask them to start cross-legged, just because also it's more compact. 30 bodies take up a lot of space.
Yep. They do.
So, and quite often, stereotypically, you end up with carpets in the classroom that kind of have 30 items. I have shapes on mine. And you ask them to sit on a shape each, because it means you don't end up with like 25 sat together, squished like this, and 5 behind them or in front. So you ask them to sit on their shape. So sitting cross-legged is generally the most compact way of that child to start sitting. And most of them find it quite comfy like that. A lot of them come out of nursery settings and you say, all right, everyone sit on the cup, everyone choose a shape or choose a animal or whatever's on your carpet, and you'll find that's how they end up sitting. So whilst I wouldn't correct or demand strictly a style of sitting, we do encourage a certain way just because it is most convenient for the majority.
Yeah.
But obviously if they physically can't, or if they really struggle with it, we understand. They're human beings. I, for example, was buying a sofa the other week. Some of them are just too deep for me to like get my legs over the end as comfy. So I'm not going to sit like that upright on the sofa. I'm going to sit with my legs curled up or cross-legged or however I sit. Why am I expecting a child to sit in a certain style when I wouldn't?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, when you're saying all this as well to them, of like, make sure your foot's not on that child, instead of going, sit cross-legged because I said so kind of thing, you're teaching them to be critical as well and think, oh yeah, I'm pushing them with my foot. I wouldn't like it if someone else pushed me like that. So it's getting them to think critically, which is exactly, what we want to encourage in the early years and beyond. And that critical thinking and problem solving and empathy as well, being able to understand what other people are actually experiencing and how they would feel. So it is a learning opportunity rather than just saying, I told you so. I told you to sit like this. And so I was going to go back to what we were talking about, I guess, initially around the fact that we should not have to expect children to sit still, but what should we do instead? So you talked about the fact that what should we expect instead? You talked about the fact that your only expectation is of children to be sitting still for, what did you say, like 90 seconds really when you're doing the register?
However long it takes me to get through those 30-ish, because it can be a little bit more, it can be a little bit less, 30 names, and for me to hear clearly and see clearly that child is there. So it does take about 90 seconds, possibly a little bit less once you know the names. Most teachers could probably say they're registered within a few weeks without even reading it. So it does get quicker, and the children know when it's their turn too. So
it's not a very long time at all. And what you say in your Instagram reel is actually that what you do expect children to be able to do, or you want them to be able to do, is to focus, to settle, and to play in deep play, to focus in deep play in their own kind of imaginative space for perhaps even a good 5 minutes. So that's quite a long time really, but that's in their own choosing, in their own play, and they might be sitting relatively still throughout that time, maybe if they're reading a book as well.
Like I'm sure everyone knows that physically younger than 4 can sit still if you give them an iPad, the chosen TV program on the TV. Like they physically, scientifically can do it. Like it is possible. But what I'm finding, and what lots of educators of early years are finding, is children are struggling to settle into play. So if I say to my children, right, off you go, like choose your learning, and I've got all the different things out, and they know that sometimes they can ask me to get other things out if it piques an interest. We allow for safety, quantity of stuff on the floor, all of those things. But we're finding children who are choosing their learning. So say some children choose to get the Lego out. They've played with it a little bit, but they can't focus. They're choosing that item to play with, that toy, but they're playing for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, but they're not sitting and really going for it, whether that's solo or in parallel play. So they're playing on their own, but next to another human. They're actually interacting and playing with another. Whereas previously we found that children could play for a longer time. And we're not sure why that is. Is that because due to, the cost of living, children have less quantity of toys in terms of toys they can sit with? Is it because of the digital era? And I do not think children should have no screen time at all, but that is a completely different thing.
That's a big topic.
That is a massive topic that I'm very invested in. And I think, again, it's a lot of wording. But that aside, there's thousands of reasons. A lot of people are saying it's COVID related. But in the past, children have been able to choose their learning or their toy and sit and settle with it for a good, 2 to 5 minutes. Because you generally say a child's attention span for quality attention, learning and focus is a minute for each year they are alive. So a 5-year-old should be able to focus for 5 minutes with high quality focus and participation. So when I get them in, they should be able to do, 3 to 5 minutes of play of their choice. And you do see it get better as you go, but we are literally teaching children to play. Whereas in the past, we weren't teaching them to play. We may be teaching them to use a resource or a toy they didn't know, but we'd be pushing them in their play. They could do playing. So they might be in the home corner, set up as a kitchen. Maybe there's a sofa or some pretend toy pets. There we go. Pretend toy pets. And so I'd be saying, oh, well, what do you need to feed the dog? Or, oh, well, show me how you cook dinner. And get them to talk to me and expand their vocabulary. And I might say, oh, well, how many carrots are you using in dinner? What are you going to put your rice in? But that's extending their play. They can already show me they can pretend to make the food or pretend to play with the dog. It's my role to take the next step.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, it's my role to know the curriculum. And when I'm asking these questions, to be in my brain going, oh, right, they can do that. Okay, yeah, they struggle with that. We'll talk. I'll catch them about that again tomorrow or the day after. But I never used to have to. And many early years education, there's never had to teach them or teach the quantity we are teaching to play. So we're having to teach them to play, and therefore they're not coming in with that focus. But, it's going to take a long time before someone chooses to do research on it. And there could be people doing research now. Until it's published, we don't know. I may have just not come across the journal yet. There is hundreds upon thousands of research journals. There is no way I'm going to find them all. Someone may have a piece of research to show what their thoughts are on it, but I've not found it yet. But it will take time because it's still quite a new scenario we're finding with a majority. So although there would always be the few, we are finding it's more the few now that can that can't.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense. So if anyone out there listening has some kind of information, some
please.
article research around why is it that children are struggling to play now? Why are they struggling to play in a focused way, engage in deep play? Have you got some insight into that? Are you currently doing some research? Please do let us know, because, this is something that educators need to be aware of, that we need to be looking into, because we need to understand children and why they're doing what they're doing, why there is that difference. We need to understand also each unique child as well.
Yeah.
So the main thing really is, now thinking about what you've just said, is what can we do about this? What should we do about this? I know that as you're a reception teacher, do you feel like, is it the responsibility of educators in, for instance, nursery, or parents to start preparing them more for this? I know there's the concept of school readiness, which we're kind of basically talking about today, although we didn't really mention it too much, which is quite nice for a change. But part of school readiness, and I guess what is your understanding of school readiness as a reception teacher, and what's your understanding of children being ready to learn?
So, school readiness. As a human teacher who has to look after 30 children I'm very fortunate to know I have one other adult, basically guaranteed. I'm lucky. Many reception teachers could have 30 on their own. In a perfect world, I would have all the children come in, be able to independently use the toilet. And when I say independently, I mean wherever your toilet setting is. So in my school, they exit the classroom, they walk past their bags that are in the corridor, they go into the toilet, they use the toilet, they wash flush the toilet, wash their hands. I know they're full. They're not going to remember every time, which is why I look at them walk through the door and I go and wash your hands. And they look at me like, how do you know? And they don't question it. They turn around and go, okay. So use the toilet independently not because I'm selfish, not because I feel every single child should fit a format of being able to use the toilet by this age. There will be children that physically, due to a medical reason, cannot do it. That parents could be trying so hard, it's just not clicking for that child. And I know that there will always be anomalies. But in a perfect world, the child can independently go and use the toilet or take a friend with them because the walk down the corridor's a bit longer than they used to. Be able to speak to me without being worried about what I'm going to say. I have children that come in day one and they will not talk to an adult. They will speak to mum, they will speak to dad, and that is it. I need them to know that I'm safe, that I'm not going to shout at them, I'm not going to do anything that you wouldn't want to happen to a child.
Yeah.
That I am a safe person to speak to. I want them to be able to tell me their name, because I'm telling you now, I'm good. I'm amazing at matching a photo to a child, but sometimes the difference of 6 weeks is insane. Somehow you put uniform on a child and they age about 20 years. So I might have a photo of them from nursery or that I've been sent by a parent and I'm thinking, well, I think it's that child. Well, they've had a haircut. And all of a sudden, they're a completely different child. So I need them to be able to go to the toilet independently, be able to speak to me and communicate, not even confidently, but with a very small amount of trust, because they've not met me before necessarily, but the sort of trust that's been passed on by their adult at home. Yes, this adult, this teacher, you talk to them, you tell them everything. When I say everything, I want to know when they're sad. I want to know when they're upset. I want to know when they're hurt. I want to know when they're hungry. I want to know when they don't feel well. Because unless they're confident in telling me that, I can't care for them. I am their school adult. I don't like to say parent. I don't like to say mum and dad, because I'm not. But I am their school carer. I'm their school adult. And I should be the person, and anyone else in my classroom eventually should be the person that they can tell this, whatever they would tell their adult at home that they are feeling if their adult at home was in the room with me.
Yeah.
And it's safer for them, and it makes their time at school easier, because if they're sad, I can sort it. If they're hurt, I can sort it. If they're not feeling well, all right, I'm not a miracle worker, but I can make it more comfortable. Toilet, communication, and just being able to tell me their name, because again, it's almost a safety thing. Because if they can't tell me their name, I can't guarantee in that first day that I've put the right name label on them. And even as far as going to lunch and making sure they don't get served something with an allergy thing.
Yeah.
So if you could just tell your child before they come to school that, and lots of schools will have done a transition day, so they'd have met me briefly for a few hours. And I do appreciate by the time they join me, it's probably about 10 weeks ago. It's a long time.
That's true.
But a lot of schools will send photos home of their teachers, will send photos of the classroom, use that booklet you've been sent, use the photos you've been sent, talk about their teacher as a trusted adult, use their name through those weeks running up to it. Talk about, I bet your teacher will love that. Oh, when you get their uniform, Miss insert teacher's name will love your cardigan. Make the name and the person sound trusted, sound like a family friend, sound like a person that's there already, because that's how they'll be confident enough to communicate with me.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and actually that's possibly higher than knowing their name and going to the toilet. Because I've had children that will not speak to me, and they've gone all day without a drink because they're too scared to ask me where their water bottle is. And because they're one of 30, and I've said, everyone go and get your water bottle, they've all walked outside. I've stood there, but there's 30 of them with me trying to watch them. And that's before you consider we could have a child with more needs, and whilst I'm watching all of them, I need to make sure that child's especially okay.
Yes.
So yeah, school readiness as a reception teacher, please use the toilet. And if you can't, those reasons, communicate with the teacher before school or that morning. Teach your child that that teacher can be communicated with everything. They are trusted. They are not the enemy. They are not scary. They're not going to tell you off. And if they can tell me that their name's Mohammed, Fred, Tilly, it'd be great.
So really, the expectation isn't incredibly high, and actually these are the things that we can expect children to be able to do anyway in their setting, whether they go to nursery, preschool, childminders. They can communicate, and it's just about feeling like they can trust you. That's the main thing, isn't it?
Like, I can do, who cares whether they know numbers to 5 when they start with me? I don't need them to know numbers to 5. That's my thing. I'm good at that. I'm an expert. I know how to teach phonics. I can teach reading. That is my job. Like, it's my jam. There is lots of other things I could say, like being able to put their shoes on themselves, being able to put their coat on themselves, being able to recognise their name written down. There's a whole list I could give you in a perfect world, but it's long and it's not that relevant. But if they can't communicate with me and I'm not trusted, I can't care for them the way you want me to. You want me to look after your baby because they are a baby, they're 4. You know, you wouldn't expect a 4-year-old to go and buy a pint of milk in the shops. And so you want me to look after your baby, but I can't do that to the best ability if your baby won't speak to me or won't communicate with me. I can do my absolute best to try, but the amount of times I've known there's something up with a child and I've sat with them and I've read a book and I've given all the avenues to speak to me. I've offered up other adults that I thought might be a preference. I've tried to, I've left them playing with the friend, with the, the house doll's house, thinking something will come out. I'll listen. They don't know I'm listening because it looks like I'm doing whatever, but I'm listening. Nothing. As soon as the parent's at the door, I don't feel well. I've not felt well for ages. I've not had a drink. I need a whip. And I'm like,
oh no.
I knew there was something wrong, but they wouldn't tell me what it was. I asked. I put things in place for me to overhear. But until they communicate with me, I'm guessing. So the amount of times it's happened where it's all flown out of their mouths to their adult at the door at 3 o'clock. And I go, well, that's what it was then. I tried, but I didn't know.
Yes, yeah. And it's the basic communication that you're talking about as well. And it's all about their safety and comfort. That's the main thing. And you being able to support them. And I love that you talk about this in a way that's so open and really simple as well, and not just making it really complicated. Like you say, you could say all these things around phonics and maths and being able to dress themselves, etc., but that actually isn't the most important thing. And I love that you put it that way, and it's so refreshing to hear that, rather than reeling off a list and being like, oh, it'd be so much easier for me as a reception teacher if your child could do X, Y, and Z, and then
I could give you that list 100%. I could, but the most important thing is that child's safe and comfy. And if they can't communicate happily with me, and I get, I've had really anxious children in the past. It takes a long time, a lot of one-to-one reading, and when I say one-to-one reading, I do not expect the child to read to me. Like me sitting with them and making special time with them, or they've taken a shine to my teaching assistant. So the teaching assistant spends that special time with them. So we just need that child to have the confidence and the trust to communicate with us. They could be feeling really unwell, like really badly unwell, and they just won't tell us because they're too, not necessarily scared, but not trusting to tell us. And I do understand stranger danger is a thing, and not talking to lots of adults is a thing, and lots of parents are getting a lot better at educating children about that. But it's finding the balance and explaining, I'm not a stranger. I'm not a stranger. I'm your teacher. I'm looking after you the same way as mummy or daddy might, or whoever adults are at home. Therefore, they when they're crying because it's their first day and they're like, they have no idea why they're still with me. So many of them do half days and they think they're going home after they've eaten their lunch. I'm like, no, we're going to play a little longer. And then the tears start, and that is fine. They're allowed to be upset. But they're 4, so many of them ask for a hug because they're adult that they usually get a hug and comfort from aren't there. And it's if they're not confident to even ask for a hug for that comfort, which after a couple of seconds, they're fine. They're running off with their friend in fits of giggles. It's not a permanent feeling, but if they don't have the confidence to ask or explain, I can't comfort them to help them further.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
realistically, you know, in the real world, I'm not allowed to send a child home because they're upset. I'm actually not allowed to. To send a child home, they have to have a high temperature. In the general guideline, there is anomalies. They've got a high temperature. They have an extremely low temperature. There is signs of a medical issue. And when I say a medical issue, I don't mean a cough. Like there could be signs of maybe a seizure starting or something in relation to diabetics, something like that.
Yeah.
Or they have physically been sick or have shown signs of S&D, which is sickness and diarrhea. Realistically, that's the regular parameters. I can't ring you because they're upset. Because otherwise, a lot of the clever children will get upset a lot.
Yes.
Funnily enough, they get to go home. I've tried it. It turns out if I cry to my boss, I'm not allowed to go home. He will not ring my mum. I've tried. And it's that, you know, I want to be able to give them the comfort. I cannot tell them, yeah, and then they're fine, but we cannot send them home straight away. So we need them to trust us to give that some level of comfort and some level of trust and just so they can carry on with their friends. So
yeah, and I think for parents and for educators listening, it's really about supporting your child to trust trusted adults. And like you say, yes, of course, teaching about stranger danger, that of course exists, but making sure that they are feeling like they are able to trust the adults that their adults do trust as well.
yeah,
And they're able to understand that there's adults there that can help them, that can support them, that they can communicate with them. And that's the most important thing. And it's that kind of personal, social, emotional development that I'm hearing from you. That's that school readiness element more so than anything else. Of course, tied in with communication and language to be able to express yourselves, express your needs. So I think this is probably a good place to wrap everything up. I feel like we could go on different tangents and talk about lots of different topics. But yeah, it's been brilliant to have you on the Voice of Early Childhood podcast, Poppy. Thank you so much. And I think this will be a really great podcast episode that's reflective. You've been reflective, and that's going to encourage people to reflect and think critically about their practice or perhaps even their parenting, for both practice in terms of reception teachers and early years educators in nurseries, preschool, childminders, nannies, etc. So yeah, really, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm looking forward to hearing. Great. I'm looking forward to hearing what other people have to say, and if they write in with their own opinions, their views, their reflections, thoughts, anything they might even disagree about. So, you know, it's always interesting to hear different thoughts. Yes, so thank you very much once again. For everyone who is listening, you can find more articles on the Voice of Early Childhood website. So there are some relating to this topic and a little bit more broadly to communication language and personal, social, emotional development as well. So please do check that out. And as I said, do get in touch with your thoughts. Thank you very much.